Hello, White Sox fans, and welcome into another winning edition of the Sox On Tap post-game show. It's Tony on tap alongside, it still says Sad Steve. He might be happy, he might be sad. We don't know. We're going to get to him in just a second. But before we do, be sure you're going to ontapsportsnet.com for all your Chicago sports literature and podcasting needs. Make sure you're following the show at Sox On Tap. Subscribe to the YouTube. Get in the comments. Let's talk about another White Sox winner here. Steve, are you still sad? Are you happy tonight? What do we got going on?
Well, Anthony, as you can see, I'm wearing my shades so that I can hide the shock in my eyes that this team was able to win consecutive games for the first time in the year of our Lord, 2023.
Well, I don't have my shades on today. Unfortunate incident. The shades broke after an episode just a few days ago. So we're going to have to get to the repair shop and get some new shades. But I'm glad that you are able to wear those to keep the shock out of your eyes tonight. Sox able to pull it off, Steve. Second in a row, 3-2 victory over the Minnesota Twins. I know how you feel about the Minnesota Twins. They're the division leaders in the AL Central right now. Two very impressive wins, in my opinion, Steve. Any first initial thoughts here before we get into this ball game?
Initial thoughts. You'd like my initial thoughts. Anthony,
Yes,
let me give you my initial thoughts. Fuck them Twins. I mean, I feel like that's the essence of it right there. Look, even in the midst of this giant shitstorm that is circling around this organization from every possible angle, from the top all the way to the bottom, anytime you piss in the Cheerios of the Minnesota Twins, it's a positive day. I'll take it.
I would say so myself. My initial thoughts on this one, I would have to say is Andrew Benintendi game. Andrew Benintendi game comes up big early, comes up big late. Did not expect that from Andrew Benintendi today, although he was my pick to click. Normally, we're sitting here talking about losses, so this is new to us in 2023 to talk about wins. But I'm pretty happy with what I saw tonight, Steve, overall.
It wasn't a terribly played baseball game. I think they've shown some flashes, I would say, in the last 3 to 4 days of trying to string together passable play. The loss on Friday night wasn't atrocious, in my opinion. For 7 innings on Saturday, things looked really good, then took a tailspin. For 8 innings on Sunday, things looked okay, then they took a tailspin. So, to see them actually kind of go out there today and play for them anyway, a relatively crisp baseball game and beat a team that is in first place somehow. My God, the fact that team is going to make the fucking playoffs just to get swept again. I mean, holy fuck. It's really something, but it was a passable win today here. So hopefully they can kind of continue that momentum going a little bit.
We've got a few commenters in on the YouTube LA 2-game win streak. Sale is here. What's going on, Sale? I didn't know teams were allowed to win 2 games in a row. Is this one of those new MLB rules? That's kind of how I feel right now. Feels like a new MLB rule. But we'll enjoy it. Victory beers taste better than misery beers. And for the first time on the show this season, I'm able to have consecutive victory beers, Steve. They taste great. They taste fantastic. Let's get to some White Sox news that took place before today's baseball game. White Sox make 11 roster moves. That's a lot. That's a lot of roster moves. You can't even count those on your 2 hands. You're going to need an extra digit. You're going to need an extra digit here.
Hey, Antonio Fonseca can do it.
There you go.
And he's got an extra digit left still.
You're thinking right there. All right, let's get to these 11 roster moves, Steve. Headliner, Tim Anderson, #back, coming off the IL after he was destroyed by Hanser Alberto earlier this season on a very unfortunate play. Hanser Alberto himself also comes #back, as you like to say, in these roster moves. Sox also pick up the contract of Alexander Colomé. No longer goes by Alex, goes by Alexander.
We're going to get to him later.
That's news. We'll get to him later. Billy Hamilton also #back. They were bringing #back a lot of things, Steve. I know you're a big fan of #back. Joe Kelly goes on the paternity list. Congratulations to Joe. He had a good inning the other day. Now he's having a kid. We'll see how that affects him. Romy Gonzalez was placed on the fake IL, retroactive to May 1st with some shoulder inflammation. Steve, you got a doctor for that?
I think I got a guy. Yeah.
You think you got a guy? Okay.
I got a guy.
Some surprising news with this one. Oscar Colas sent down. Maybe that's not surprising to you. Maybe it's surprising to you. We can debate that later on in the show. Lenine Sosa, not so surprising, sent back to Charlotte. And then Mr. Jake Diekman is no longer a Chicago White Sox. And along with him, Frank Germain is designated for assignment. So a lot of moves by the Chicago White Sox. Steve, we'll start from the top here. Tim Anderson back. Thoughts on this?
Look, Tim is the catalyst. He is the straw that stirs the drink. We have seen this for much of the last 4 to 5 years, that as Tim goes, so goes this team.
You're stealing some lines from Pedro Grifol in the pregame there.
Well, listen.
Or is Pedro Grifol stealing lines from everybody else who said that for a couple of years?
I mean, it checks out. He's also stealing terrible lineup construction decisions, but that's not why you called. But it's obviously a positive to see Tim back in there, because if you look at this team's record when he's in the lineup over the last 3 to 4 years, when he's in, good things happen. When he's gone, bad things happen. We saw what was the number? What were they, 2-14 without him? I mean, that's how you say not great, Bob.
I was going to say the only way that you can sort of describe this was not great, Bob, in terms of record without Tim Anderson.
So, yeah, that's certainly going to be a positive to have him back there at the top of the order, looking to #set the tone. Maybe the tone will actually be set now with Timmy back in play here. So that's something to be mindful of and hopefully continue here going forward.
Any other thoughts on some roster moves? I know we're going to get to Alexander Colomé.
Yeah,
I get to the 8th inning of today's ball game and our game recap. Any thoughts? We can talk about Billy there as well, but maybe we have some parting words for Jake Diekman.
Mm-hmm.
Somewhere along the lines here. You got any thoughts on this?
Go away. Yeah. Great acquisition there at the deadline last year, Han. Awesome. Great job. Brilliant. Perfect.
That was I saw that described by a couple of people as a Rick Hahn masterclass.
Yeah. So, the one move I want to talk about the Oscar Colas thing.
Okay. Perfect.
This is something that I tried to caution a lot of people about heading into the season here. The concerns with the plate discipline, the strikeout to walk ratio, the last half of 2022 in Birmingham, and even when he got to Charlotte there in that brief little cup of coffee that he had, a lot of people were kind of going out there saying that, he was going to be the answer and he was going to be the guy to break the mold, so to speak. Gee, where have I seen that title before? What website is it that I've seen something written about this, about not putting all the faith in Oscar Colas to be the guy to come in and basically get this right field black hole sorted out?
Could that be ontapsportsnet.com?
Ding! We have a winner there. Thank you. This is where I feel like I'm a broken record when I talk about this team's inability to fortify a roster and provide competency from 1 through 26. A competent organization would have gone out there and would have tried to create some level of certainty so that you're not relying on an unproven Oscar Colas who does have some skill set concerns still at this point here. And unfortunately, they were exploited here in his first cup of coffee in the show.
Steve, I echoed your thoughts. I'm pretty sure our wonderful video editor, Mr. Brian Lefevre over there, had put together a clip of
you got to
me
catch that
talking about,
fever, baby.
Yeah, you got to catch the fever and follow that guy on Twitter. He's got some excellent content. And if you're into Arizona Diamondbacks baseball outside of Chicago White Sox baseball, he's got you covered over there as well. But I'm pretty sure I had said on this show in a season preview episode that I've bought this car a couple of times. What I'm actually impressed with is that they sent him down. They sent him down when they realized that he wasn't going to be able to handle this and, maybe needs just a little bit more seasoning. We've seen this with Gavin Sheets before. We've seen this with a couple other guys before, but it was something that the White Sox were unwilling to do with guys like Eloy Jimenez, Yohan Moncada, when they first got their first tastes here. So if there's anything positive with this, we've seen some sort of now ability for the White Sox to send a prospect back down, a hyped up prospect back down to the minor leagues when they did not belong at the major league level, producing what they should be in that lineup. Now, I don't put guys like Lenyn Sosa in that class. I think he's a little bit of a notch below Steve. But for Oscar Colas, I think he's one of your top guys right now. Very interesting to see him go back down, at least for me. I think it's the right move. I think it's going to spark him. And I hope that the excitement that he had making the major league roster out of spring training is something that he looks at right now and wants to get back to, because that's the success that he needs to see. That's the success he needs to want. And that's the success that he's going to need to achieve, like he saw in spring training, to get himself back up to right field. But again, like I said before, we've tried selling this car to White Sox fans before. I didn't want to buy it right out of the gate. You and I know how we both feel about spring training. I think people who've tuned into the show for a long time know how both of us feel about spring training. So I'll leave it at that. But I want to see this light a fire under this kid's ass, and I want him to come back better than he was in his first month. I don't know about you. That's how I feel on this move. I thought it was a good message sender.
Yeah, and I think ultimately when these types of things happen with prospects that are within the upper echelon of any organization, it's going to usually have one of two reactions. Either it's going to light that proverbial fire, like you said, and it's going to cause a little bit of self-reflection for the individual to say, okay, I've got some obvious things that I need to work on here, because, while Truist Ballpark in downtown Charlotte looks lovely, and I've heard great things about Charlotte as a city, minus the whole vinegar barbecue sauce thing they got going on in North Carolina that I'm not really a fan of. I've heard Charlotte's a really nice city, but that's not where you want to be ultimately right now. So he's gonna do that self-reflection, whatever it is going to take for him to figure out and develop that plate discipline and get to a point where he can put himself in a position to be dangerous in the batter's box with more consistency. He's got to find a way to do it. So either he's going to have that fire lit under him, or he's going to wilt and succumb to the negativity now of being sent down. And ultimately the choice is his, and it's going to be fascinating to see how he responds.
Something we'll be looking at and keeping close tabs on here over at Sox on Tap, Steve. Let's get into today's ball game. It was a winner. Can't wait to talk about it. Michael Kopech took the mound for your Chicago White Sox. Looked pretty damn good. I've got one bone to pick with Michael Kopech's start, and that's the jinx tweets, because Kopech gives you almost 6 innings of no-hit baseball today. His first hit comes in the 6th inning. I believe here, Steve, and he does walk 5 batters, strikes out 7, but he threw 51 of his 89 pitches for strikes. That's something that I think you're a big fan of. And I would say this is Michael Kopech's best start of the season that we've seen thus far. I just don't understand why guys like Besnick, our guy Besnick, resident Sox on Tap contributor, had to go and ruin his start. I don't understand it.
Walk
me through that thought process.
That's just the thing that he does. If you're on twitter.com, it's this new website. I don't know if you've heard of it. There's all these talks of these things called gimmicks. Now, I'm not familiar with gimmicks, what they are, but I hear things. I see things on twitter.com. And it seems to me that if I'm understanding it correctly, that Besnick is doing a gimmick where he's doing the reverse jinx, so to speak, or you could even say it's the actual jinx. Some might say he's trying to rival the Merc jinx. I mean, that thing is generational, so I don't know that he's going to be able to get up to that level. But we saw this with the Lance Lynn situation. There was another.
Got a couple of these ruined.
Yeah, there was the Giolito start in there as well. So this is very much a thing that is now part of Besnick's repertoire. And see, my guy Sal, he gets it. Yeah. You got to wonder where our guy Besnick, Sox and say, where his head is at if he's going out there and if he is putting that kind of negativity into the Twitter sphere like that.
I think he just wants to watch the world burn.
Some men just want to watch the world burn.
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but Michael Kopech looked fantastic today on the mound, Steve.
It was better. It was a step in the right direction here. Obviously, that sixth inning there, when he got himself into trouble, and this has been kind of the bugaboo for him to this point, is the walks have been problematic if you look at just the stat line in general. But where he's really getting himself into trouble is he usually has one inning in there where they come in bunches, where he'll walk 2 or 3 guys, and then that's when things really start to spiral. So, he had, I think it was 2 walks through the first 5, or 2 or 3 walks through the first 5 innings there. And they were spread out though. So you'd have a walk here and then he would get out of it. He'd get a double play. He'd elevate the fastball, get some strikeouts, get a lot of swing and misses, and he was working in the curveball with a little bit more regularity today than we have seen through any of his other starts to this point. But then that final inning there, that's when, after he gave up that the base hit to, it was Correa that broke it up, correct?
I'm not exactly positive on the actual hitter here. I can try and go pull some stuff, but I thought it was.
I thought it was Correa. So, it was almost like after that, like he was a little bit deflated from it. And then you could just see the next batter, 4-pitch walk. Then you get another walk in there. And now all of a sudden you're in a spot here where you got the bases loaded and 1 out, and you're in a tough spot. And this thing could spiral very quickly. Now he was able to rebound from it at that point, keep the Twins to just the 1 run that scored on the sacrifice fly. So that was a positive development.
Because we have not seen Correa. Correa had the double off of column A. That was his only hit. I believe it would have been Buxton who got him.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. That's right. So to see him actually just, fight through that, limit the damage to the 1 run, I think is a positive development for Michael Kopech. But they've just got to figure out and find some way. And this isn't just a Michael Kopech problem, unfortunately. This is a whole pitching staff problem, is these walks just coming in bunches at inopportune times, and they just can't consistently pitch around them.
I'll just add some stats here to this, Steve. Twins only able to muster 3 hits off the Chicago White Sox today. However, reached base 5 times via the walk. That could spell you trouble in a game where you are right in it, close ball game. One extra hit from the Twins, and there was one in this ball game that could have been a difference maker if it wasn't for an excellent glove out in left field that could have changed the course of this ball game. So those walks can come back to haunt you. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. So this is really something that I've been monitoring. I've been talking about this from the outset of the season here, and even leading up to the season, this team needing to control the strike zone better, and they're just simply not doing it with any kind of regularity whatsoever. And it is very frustrating. And this is a big part of the reason why the pitching staff, particularly the bullpen, I think the starting rotation is beginning to stabilize a little bit here over the last 7 to 10 days or so. But even still, they're putting themselves in too many positions where they're getting elevated pitch counts, putting additional strain on the bullpen. And they just got to be going out there, getting after hitters, working ahead in counts more consistently, and not issuing those free passes.
Our guy Sale here says that he believes he read something on a website called On Tap Sportsnet about walks.
It's big news if true.
It is big news if true, but it is something that we've talked about fairly frequently on the show. I believe multiple writers at On Tap Sportsnet have written about walks. I believe you're one of them, Steve, that said that they're bad. And we're always working to confirm things, but I'm pretty sure that we can put a stamp on this.
I have reached out to multiple sources on this very topic here, and I was able to get it hashtag confirmed that breaking news: walks bad.
Walks are bad. We don't like them. Steve, keep this one going here. Twins were able to break this open. You tweeted something. I believe it said ball game, after the Twins were able to scratch a run across the plate in the 6th inning of today's baseball game. Sox were able to answer back via an Eloy Jimenez home run that came with a runner on base.
Weird, fascinating, wild stuff. A multi-run homer. Who knew that sort of thing was possible?
I didn't.
And who knew it was possible that Eloy Jimenez could hit the baseball in the air? Huh, about that.
You saw this from Eloy, I believe, on Sunday. He had 4 hits, was starting to connect with the baseball. I don't know if it was 4 hits exactly, but he seemed like he was on base quite a bit, Steve. I also saw him doing something, and this is just the eye test, and I'm wondering if you caught the same thing. After Luis Robert sort of had that slow up, there was a conversation in the dugout between Eloy Jimenez and Luis when they panned over there. But it seemed like Eloy was running everything out. Everything. Just doing what you would want to see a baseball player do if you watch the Chicago White Sox. Kind of noticed it on a couple of plays. Just hustled down the line, head down. I saw some growth there from him, at least via the eye test. And I thought to myself, this guy's going to do some damage here soon. He looks like he's dialed in. He looks like he cares right now. I was not surprised by this home run at all. Any thoughts from you on that?
You know, I can't say that I have paid that close attention to his effort level and if he is, running with more intensity. So I will definitely take that under advisement, counselor, and I will, work to confirm, as we like to say in the business here.
As long as you're working to confirm, that's the important thing.
Listen, confirmation is key in the year of our Lord 2023. That's a big thing. So I'll definitely take that under advisement here. But long story short here, it would be really nice if Eloy would continue to elevate the baseball, because I've heard it said that when the ball goes far, the team does well. So
is that big if true?
Huge if true.
Huge if true. Got it. Just wanted to confirm that. Now, Steve, this gets a little touch and go here, and I know you've been waiting to talk about this for a while. I'll give you the floor. I'll preface it with, I was a huge Alex Colomé guy on this show for a long time. I've sort of taken myself out of that ring. I do believe that the signing of Alex Colomé is something that I liked for a lot of different reasons, especially with this bullpen. It's a low risk, high reward move that this team sort of took a chance on. Now, do I expect Alex Colomé to be the same thing he was in 2019? Absolutely not. However, there were some things that I saw out there on Twitter over the course of the past day after Alex Colomé came back up. And I think you're the perfect person to talk about this because Colomé comes into the ball game tonight in the 8th inning, which I thought was sort of a questionable choice for a manager. And we're gonna break this down a little bit too. So we'll try and speed through this segment a little bit. I want to give Steve his time, but I thought it was a questionable choice to have Alex Colomé out there in the 8th inning of this ball game today. What does he do? He serves up a home run to pitch hitter Nick Gordon. And Steve, you have the floor, my friend.
Yeah, it's really fascinating because for 2 years now, or going on 3 years now, all I've been hearing about is, they should have brought back Colomé. Oh, Colomé was so great. He's best closer for the White Sox in the last 30 years. Cocked hats. By the way, your hat's on straight, Anthony. Shouldn't you have it tilted to the side for this segment here?
Full disclosure: when Colomé came into the ball game, I did cock the hat a little bit, and then it quickly returned back to its natural position after the ball sailed out of the ballpark. So
fascinating there. But listen, I mean, there's a reason why no serious organization has been interested in having this guy pitch for them for the last 2 seasons. So I think I can rest there. I think it is fascinating also that he's going by Alexander Colomé now. Not sure what that's all about. I'm sure, a certain fat, loud, mouth-breathing Twitter user is going to use that as an excuse for why he got shelled tonight. But, that's neither here nor there.
You've never liked Alex Colomé, even when he was with the White Sox, so I didn't expect this segment any different. We'll just agree to disagree and move on from this one. Sox are able to...
Do we want to talk about and get into the actual decision of having him come into that? I want
to save that. I want to save that for sort of after we get through this game, Steve, because I think it's part of a larger discussion that you and I need to have in terms of moves made by the manager. Okay. So that's one of them. That's one of them. So, but we can bookmark this. I want to get to the 9th inning. Some failed opportunities, but some stuff that I saw here that was going to be something that's somewhat of foreshadowing for what I thought was going to be the role of a specific player, and that's Billy Hamilton. 9th inning, we did end up squandering what was a chance to take this ball game. Alex Colomé, as the fast forward tape reel moves through, was replaced by Kenya Milton. He had an excellent outing tonight. Didn't give up anything. So have to give him some credit. Give credit where credit is due. But in the 9th inning, I believe you've got Billy Hamilton out there with a really heads-up base running play after what was a fairly close steal. Play was overturned. He was safe. After the review, gets over to third base. A ground ball comes to the shortstop. I was very impressed with Billy Hamilton being able to make it over to third. This is not something that we've seen White Sox base runners be able to do, is make that aggressive play and get there. When they signed Billy Hamilton earlier this season, or early in the offseason, Steve, I thought to myself, that is the perfect guy that you have on this bench for the White Sox roster for these specific reasons. And he proved that sort of right. Something that Grifol talked about in his pregame press conferences was we're going to use him in late innings. We're going to deploy him. Again, bookmark this one. We're going to deploy him in these situations to take advantage of his speed on the base pass. I think he did his job tonight the way that you would want Billy Hamilton to do his job. Any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what he is there for. He is there to be able to steal a pivotal 90 feet when you need it, be able to go in and provide quality defense in the outfield late in games if you are tied or have a lead. So that really is the place for him. Andrew Vaughn leading off that inning right there, getting walked twice, basically, and then obviously getting removed, and Hamilton getting there on first base. Made that play a little closer than I would have liked it to have been on that steal attempt at second base there. So, Billy,
Could have been a better jump.
I'm going to need you to get a better jump out there, okay? This is what you're on this roster for. So if you're going to be there, I'm going to need you to get a better jump and not make it that close. But no, that was definitely the right spot to use Billy Hamilton there.
White Sox failed to get him in, though, Steve. Any thoughts on this? I'm curious to see where your head was at when.
My thoughts are that's just so White Sox in 2023.
Somehow, Jimmy Lambert, and I think a lot of credit needs to go to Jimmy Lambert's
that's James Lambert.
James Lambert. I think a lot of credit needs to go to his scoreless 10th inning here tonight, Steve. Or we're not talking about a win. Able to get out of the ghost runner jam, the non-self-inflicted ghost runner jam. He was lights out. Lights out Jimmy. Lights out James. Whatever you want to call him.
Yeah, no,
it was fantastic to watch.
He did a great job out there. He's obviously had a couple of rough outings in the last week or so. So to see him go there in a pressure-packed situation with no margin for error and go out there and do his job, do it against the top part of this Minnesota Twins lineup, against Byron Buxton, a guy that has been a nightmare for this team over the course of the last 3 to 4 years. So to do it in that particular spot right there, that's going to be a huge confidence booster for my boy James Lambert to get back on track here.
I'll take it. Let's go to the bottom half of this inning, Steve. Hanser Alberto out on second base. Opportunity for Tim Anderson. I will say this. I expect more out of the guy that, you said this on the show. Pedro Grifol said it. The team goes as Timmy goes. When Tim Anderson is unable to get that run in that situation. First game back, give him a little bit of leeway, but just something I'm looking at. I want Timmy to have those moments. You and I were out in Iowa, and we saw a moment where Timmy delivered. Obviously, this is baseball. If you can hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, you're fairly successful. We'll take that into consideration here, but that would have been a good moment for Tim Anderson. I also think if you want to roll the tape back to the bottom of the ninth, could have been a big moment for somebody else. But we finally rest on the White Sox highest paid player of all time, Andrew Benintendi.
Noodle boy.
Gets the job done. He gets the job done tonight. I thought it was an excellent spot for him. You needed a base hit. You didn't need a home run. You just needed a base hit. And I think the White Sox had the right guy at the right time to deliver another game winner. And we're sitting here drinking victory beers for the second time in a row. Steve, thoughts on the close of this ball game?
That was pretty clutch. And, for Andrew Benintendi, a guy that has been pretty maligned here through his first month in a White Sox uniform. A lot of things have not looked particularly good out there. I mean, he's being referred to as Noodle Boy on Twitter.com. That's not really a moniker you want to have to wear when you are the highest paid player in the history of a franchise, as laughable as that might be. So to have an opportunity to go out there and do the impossible, anything is possible, and help this team get a second consecutive win. Nice to see him come through in that spot.
Absolutely was. I was just enamored because he was my pick to click tonight. Not only did he save a run in the first inning, he delivers your game-winning hit. I thought he played a great ball game today, Steve. And we'll put another one in the left-hand column, which is very important at this point in time for your 2023 Chicago White Sox. All of them have to come in the left-hand column here for a little bit before people are going to feel comfortable with this team.
They really need a string where they put about 16 of them in that left-hand column in about a 20-game stretch.
Yeah, so tonight works. The work checked out. Let's get to our last segment before we close this down, Steve. Something that we talked about before the show that both of you and I wanted to discuss. And I'll sort of set the table here. I'll let you roll with it. There's been a lot of moves made by Pedro Grifol so far this season. We've got a month worth of sample size to work with here. Eye test tells me Pedro Grifol makes more managerial moves within a ball game than I am used to seeing just on the surface here. Now, I'm not trying to roll back into Renteria, La Russa, Robin Ventura, or anybody else, just evaluating Pedro Grifol. He's a new manager. This is his first month on the job. I feel like we may or may not have an over-managing problem. My case in point, Jake Berger should never been replaced in today's ball game. You want your former first-round draft pick up in that spot in the ninth. He's made a couple good defensive plays. You need offense in a tie ball game or even in a one-run ball game. You can't go to Hanser Alberto in that situation tonight. It's not the only time it's happened. There's moves that are made in every single baseball game. To me, this signals lack of faith in guys and can lead to things down the road that could be problematic, especially with guys who are young, developing, trying to be those guys for the Chicago White Sox, getting taken out of baseball games a little too early. I want to see a little bit more faith in some of the guys. There might be some overmanaging here. That's just my opinion. Steve, I'll turn the floor to you.
Well, before we even talk about the defensive substitution there, we have to talk about before the game. I don't know how you justify hitting Jake Berger 8th in a lineup that has not been producing power with any level of consistency here for well over a year at this point. So you have the guy that is your biggest power producer to this point, and you're going to drop him down to 8th. So right away, that kind of got my alarm bells going. You know, I'm old enough to remember, and I was very critical of, certain someone utilizing a second leadoff spot for Andrew Vaughn a year ago in kind of similar circumstances when he was swinging the bat pretty well. So I think to be in a spot here where you've got to start building some momentum here, you have to find a way to start stacking some wins. If you want to do the unthinkable and at least somehow get back into this race, you can't take the one guy that has consistently been producing power for you and move him 8th in your lineup. He had talked about not dropping Luis Robert down out of the leadoff spot for a long time and wanting to show him confidence. How do you justify showing confidence in a guy that is struggling to the level that Luis Robert has been for the last 15 games, but not show the confidence in a guy that has been producing? So that right there was very irritating to me. And then to your point, this decision to remove him in the 7th inning of a one-run ball game. I'm sorry. You can't tell me that the difference in the defense, and I have been, I think, very forthright and critical at times of Jake Berger's defense, I think it has gotten better here over the last couple of weeks, but you can't tell me that, Hanser Alberto is not winning any gold gloves anytime soon at third base. You can't tell me that the difference in the defense is going to make up for the difference offensively. And I was flabbergasted early on in the season why Jake Berger wasn't given an opportunity to hit against right-handed pitching, people that were just saying he was nothing more than a platoon bat. And I felt that there were plenty of circumstances where Grifol was over-managing in those spots right there and not giving him the opportunity to hit against right-handed pitching. He subsequently stopped doing that, and Jake Berger has continued to produce regardless of handedness. So this idea and this belief that he is such a liability that in the seventh inning of a one-run game that he should be replaced for Hanser Alberto just does not make any sense to me.
Berger's a professional. If he was asked in this situation, do you think you should have come out of this ball game? He's not going to disrespect his manager. He's not going to come out there and say that. But just my opinion. Do you think Jake Berger wants to sit on the bench? I would think, fuck no.
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. You played this game and you're a first-round draft pick. You put in all this work to get to this level. You want to be in those situations. That's not the situation for your platoon guy or bench guy to come in for you in a one-run ball game. Now, you got a 3-4 run lead, Steve. Maybe this is a different story. Maybe it's a different story. Not with this team right now, because they've shown the ability to choke away any lead at any point in time. You want your best players out there. If the guy's good enough to be in your starting lineup, he should play the entire fucking game, unless he's that much of a liability. I don't think that this is really a case where those metrics show that Hanser Alberto is far and away a way better defender than Jake Berger. And especially when you look at, you're going to need some runs. And the White Sox did. They needed runs tonight. They got sort of lucky that Hanser Alberto wound up in a position where he is the runner on second base in the 10th inning and wasn't called upon in a spot where they needed.
Yeah, because he didn't get the job done when he had a chance to win it in the bottom of the ninth.
Yeah, so they got lucky there. I would rather have Jake Berger in that situation 10 times out of 10 strike out to end that inning and learn from that. That's a growth spot. That's a development thing. If you're not going to expose the young guys that are proving themselves to situations to go win a ball game, how are they going to learn? How are they going to grow? You can't baby them that way. I was sort of pissed off at the fact that Hanser Alberto was put into that situation. What did Hanser Alberto do over the past 3-4 weeks, Steve, while he was on the injured list, to get himself in a situation to earn that at bat? I feel like it wasn't earned. It was a managerial move made for the sake of making a managerial move. And that's sort of the premise of this. I feel like I've seen that a lot with this team so far this season. I don't know about you.
I don't disagree with that. Like I said, I mean, there's a lot of questionable things that I have seen through the first month of the season from Pedro Grifol, looking at some of the pitcher usage and some of the matchups in which guys like Jake Diekman were deployed that simply left you scratching your head. Again, some of those defensive substitutions, removing guys like Jake Berger. And, again, I talked about the lineup situation here with hitting Berger eighth to start the game. Everybody knows I was very critical of Larry Garcia hitting third multiple times a season ago. this spot to me of hitting Jake Berger 8th, I mean, it's on that same level to me. And I think for people that lambasted a certain guy that is no longer here for using Leury in that spot, you should be having that same level of animosity and disdain for Jake Berger, again, who has been your biggest offensive run producer, hitting 8th. So there needs to be some consistency from that standpoint of it here. And I think I talked about this at the outset of the season. I was fully expecting the first month to 6 weeks to see some very questionable things from Pedro Grifol, from a guy his first time in that managerial chair. He's not disappointed me in that regard. And it is part of the learning process. But again, it is something that you look at and you just say, what the fuck are you thinking with this move right here? So, very frustrating, and hopefully this is something that he is going to learn from in very short order here, because they really can't afford to have these types of questionable decisions from a lineup construction standpoint or from a bench utilization standpoint or bullpen matchup utilization standpoint. They can't see these things continue here if they are going to try to build some momentum going forward.
Let's hope we don't overmanage ourselves back into what we saw in April. Like, I want that to sort of slow down. That's my expectation, is that it does slow down. I'm hoping here's a first-time manager sort of learning the ropes, figuring that out. Again, that's something that I can sit here and debate with myself or anybody else, is like, do you even want that guy to be in the position right now where you have that? I don't think it's the only reason we saw what happened in April happen, but the margin for error right here, Steve, is there is no margin. There is no margin for error. You've got to get this thing back on track. I see stuff like that tonight. Leaves you sitting on the edge of your seat just a little bit. But that's just me.
You're not wrong, Anthony. Those are the types of decisions and types of things on the margins that can cost a team that is not playing well, that has roster deficiencies, ball games with consistency. And unfortunately, we have seen that through the first month of this season.
Seen way too much of it. Well, that said, we've got two. We've got 2 in a row. Got another ball game tomorrow. Sox set to take on the Minnesota Twinkies once again. 6:10 start, Steven. It's going to be a test. It's going to be a bit of a test for us to get to 3. We've not seen that yet this year. Why don't you walk us through the pitching matchup tomorrow?
Well, I think before we get to that, look, getting back-to-back wins for the first time here on May 2nd is pretty fascinating. You get a win tomorrow.
Fascinating is a great word for it.
You get a win tomorrow. That's 3. That's called a winning streak. It has happened before, and I've been told it can happen again. # unconfirmed. So hopefully we can see that. Dylan Cease going to be on the mound for the Sox. Really need him to kind of bounce back here against some guy by the name of Louis Varland. Frankly,
have you ever heard of this guy?
That sounds like a made-up creative player in MLB The Show. And so I'm not even sure that this is a real person. I'm reaching out to multiple sources to get confirmation on it, because frankly, this guy sounds made up.
Which created by artificial intelligence, which
means confirmed. He's probably going to go out there and throw 8 innings of shutout ball with 10 strikeouts.
Let's hope that's not the case.
Let's hope it's not. But
I want to see Dylan Cease be able to get back to Dylan Cease dominating the Twins form, like when we were in that suite the one night and things were happening. Man, Besnick was in attendance for that too, wasn't he? This guy
You
just.
know, I think we might need an on-tap Sportsnet investigation here.
We might need an on-tap Sportsnet investigation. We also might need an on-tap Sportsnet intervention.
I think we've gotten to that point, my friend.
There might need to be an intervention. You and I are going to take the lead on this, Steve. I'll let you investigate it, report back to me. And if we need to have an intervention so that we can ever witness one of these things again.
Well, listen, I'm someone that I think is very well qualified to speak on these things, having
you've been there before.
Many of them. And so it's very clear to me that there is a conspiracy on the part of Mr. Besnick here to prevent me from adding to my no-hitter attendance figure. And we need to get to the bottom of this, because this kind of behavior just simply cannot be allowed to continue.
We're going to have to get to the bottom of it, Steve, rather quickly, because it's been a problem on the timeline for a couple of days now in such a short period of time that I'm able to pick up on this. I know how stitious you are. I know how stitious our guy Johnny is, as well as Sean. And, there's just a lack of stitiousness that seems to come from a particular account that's online that we're going to have to address at some point. But I'd like to see Dylan Cease get back to that kind of form against the Minnesota Twins tomorrow, Steve. You got a pick to click?
Yeah, I will go ahead and take a pick to click. This Louis Varland guy that they have made up. I think he is going to fall prey to Mr. Timothy Anderson. We have not seen Timothy Anderson find the launch codes in quite a long time.
I have a long standing problem with Timothy Anderson not finding the launch codes.
So I think tomorrow night is the night the launch codes are rediscovered. Don't be surprised if Mr. Louis Varland throws a cock shot there, that first pitch to lead off the game, if Timmy tries to put that thing on the Ryan tomorrow.
You're calling a first, not first pitch, but
first. If he grew the first pitch fastball,
fastball.
He is going to look to turn and burn.
I would love to see it, Steven. I would love to see it. I want a bat flip. I want to bring the bat flip back. It feels like it's been so fucking long since you saw Tim Anderson in a White Sox uniform just be able to have that moment. Feels like it's been forever. I'm waiting for it. Hope it comes tomorrow. But if it doesn't, it needs to come soon. I want that Tim Anderson fuck you moment. I would love Tim Anderson to find the launch codes first pitch. Maybe just give a nice little glare over to the Minnesota Twins dugout as he's heading down towards first base after that bat is launched higher in the air than a player from the north side launched it into the air as he went down that same baseline. I want a cool moment for this team. He needs to bring something. And I love your pick to click. I'm going to go with Eloy Jimenez. This dude's riding a hot streak. I'd like to see him put together a couple games in a row where he's either leaving the yard or hitting extra base hits. So I'm going to ride Eloy Jimenez tomorrow, Steve.
All right. I like it. Eloy found the launch codes again here tonight. He does have a propensity to hit them in bunches. So I think it would be a good thing, and it would certainly behoove this team in general to do that thing where they hit the ball over that fencing that is set up prior to the game.
No home run fireworks tonight for Eloy.
Well, listen, dogs were in the ballpark. Dog day at the ballpark, and we got to talk about this. I did see on social media there was somebody out there who did a really great job of having their dog prepared, dressed for the occasion there, and a nice, glorious dog-fitted sell the team shirt. That's the kind of thing that you love to see. That is what we like to call in the business good parenting.
I did not see the dog in the sell the team shirt. I missed that one. Please send that to me. That's very interesting. We did have an on tap dog in attendance.
We did.
We did have an on-tap dog in attendance. My dog was unable to make it tonight due to prior obligations. Did your dog make it out to the ballpark tonight? I know he's getting a little older.
Yeah, well, there was no dog in attendance tonight. I could say that.
Maybe next year we can bring our dogs to a ballpark. Steve, I heard from Chuck Garfine's Twitter account that the White Sox are, I believe, 17-3 on dog days. That's got to be a thing. They talked about it a little bit on the White Sox post game. We definitely need more good stats like that. That's a good stat. It was just interesting to me today. Just one last note before we close this thing down. We've talked about sort of ballpark dynamics in terms of attendance. It was a really interesting thing to see on the broadcast, the people who brought their dogs to the ballpark tonight. When you saw the second level of the outfield, basically all the seats, maybe 20 rows up, filled more than any other area of the ballpark because people had their dogs there tonight. They got treated to a walk-off victory, but let's fill that stadium in, and the first step is winning baseball games to get us there. But I thought the dog attendance was pretty nice to see tonight. There was a lot of I know that you can say a lot of happy humans left the ballpark, but there's probably a lot of happy dogs left the ballpark tonight.
I would think so. I think the Pooches, they got their money's worth, and they were able to take in a White Sox winner. So, as someone that is very well respected in the K9 community, your boy Hosa can certainly attest to that. He's that's my guy right there. So it's always nice when you send the Pooches home happy.
Yes, absolutely. And we're going to go home happy. Thank you to everyone who tuned into the show. We went an hour tonight, Steve. It feels great to talk about wins. It feels great to talk about wins. We doubled the show time for everybody on the post game because the White Sox won. I'm sure that if this was a loss, I don't think we'd still be here talking about this baseball team right now. I'm glad we've got the monkey off the back. I'm hoping for a better May, Steve. Might have to get in on, White Sox AL Central Division winner action at this point, ride the high and have some fun with it. But I want more of these winning post-game shows with all of us for the remainder of this month and continuing on through the summer. Steve, let's get to final thoughts and we'll close this thing down. Any final thoughts?
Final thoughts of this, as Nuke Lelouch used to say during the classic Bull Durham, which is unequivocally the best baseball movie ever made. There is simply no debate about that. I like winning. It's a lot better than losing. So there's that. And then, as I said at the top of our broadcast here tonight, fuck them Twins.
My final thoughts: winning is cool and tough. It's fun. Victory beers taste better than misery beers. Too many misery beers in April. I hope what Andrew Vaughn said about April showers bring May flowers is actually April misery beers.
Tyler Flowers?
Bring May victory beers. That's what I'm hoping. Tyler Flowers. I don't think we need that name on this podcast at the moment. Steve, it's always a pleasure talking about White Sox winners with you. Close it down how we always do. White Sox forever.
White Sox for life.